course, it is a crisis. It's often said that leaders, as I mentioned to Michael before, that leaders are bolstered and elevated at times of crisis. Do you think that that's been something that's helped Mr Rudd? His approval rating, as we've mentioned, is quite extraordinary at the moment.
Well, look, I think what the Australian people were looking for was strong leadership and getting ahead of the curve, and that's clearly what this side has done. I mean, Michael's tried to put on a pretty good spin on
Craig,
things.
You spent $10.4 billion, mate.
About saying, you know, that they have a robust debate in terms of their position on their side of politics. But look, you look at the other side of politics compared to where we are, whether it's the economy, whether it's climate change, whether it's industrial relations, or all of the key issues that people think are important, they've got a variety of positions, and sometimes they have a variety of positions on the one day. So it's, you know, what the Australian people were after and what they're seeing from the Rudd government is a strong position, a decisive position, one that's showing leadership and addressing the real concerns that people have. So it's not so much that incumbents get any sort of advantage, it's what sort of leadership is being provided, and we're providing very strong leadership.
Craig, spending $10.4 billion of Howard Costello funds certainly helps your cause.
Well, I'm sure, Michael, you would, when you talk to your pensioners in your electorate, and to the carers in your electorate, and the families in your electorate, you'd be agreeing with us that this has been a good thing, that it's gone to people who need it, and it's also going to have a very positive effect on the economy. So, Michael will understand this at his local level, that this has been very important and very well targeted.
Okay, well, some experts are advising people not to spend, to put the money away and reassess their financial circumstances in the new year. Craig, is the government asking people to sacrifice their own economic well-being for the sake of the country?
No, not at all. If people are paying off credit, then that's a good thing as well too. If they've got debts and paying bills, then that's appropriate that they do that. We're not telling people where to spend their money. What we're relying on is that Treasury is telling us that the stimulus package will have a 1% effect on GDP growth, and that's important. And people have to make sure that they think carefully about where they're going to spend their money, and how they're going to use it, and do it in a sensible and appropriate way. But we're quite sure that the effect of this stimulus package will be that we'll see extra growth in the economy.
Michael, the opposition leader says that it would have been better to give tax cuts, but surely the economy needed the jolt that the government's trying to achieve with this. And the fact of the matter is the government's introducing tax cuts as of July 1 next year anyway. So they're doing that as well as this.
Yeah, look, Kieran, I think the thing we're trying to avoid is a recession, and the government's decided that this is the best way to go ahead. I mean, our concern on the opposition is what happens if the stimulus doesn't in fact have its desired goal. Is there going to be another $10.4 billion spent? Because you just can't keep on doing this. And yes, of course my pensioners welcome this sort of stimulus, but what happens afterwards? I mean, the Prime Minister said spend, spend, spend. Well, let me give him another five-letter word. What about broke? If we go broke, if the country goes into deficit, how do we repay this money?
Yeah, but Michael,
you
want to pay. You want to give something to the pensioners. You want to give tax cuts, etc. I mean, how much are you actually spending in terms of what's going on? I mean, we're taking a responsible position here, saying that we need to stimulate the economy. This is a one-off stimulus to make sure that the economy grows. And in terms of tax cuts, well, there were tax cuts earlier this year, there'll be tax cuts next year. We're doing a full tax review, and so those longer term structural issues are being also addressed by the Rudd government. We're looking at pensions in the long term. We're doing all of these things, and we're going to do this in a responsible way. Well, we're not in deficit.
Last time we had a deficit, it was not only 6 years, it was 6 miserable years. And I can tell you that the people in the Ryan electorate are certainly very anxious about how we're going to pay back this deficit.
Actually, last time we had a deficit was 2001. Your government actually did have a deficit as well. But
six long years of Labor deficit.
We're not expecting a deficit. But what we are saying is that...
You're not expecting a deficit now?
No, we're not expecting a deficit, and we think that...
I think, Kieran, this is another example of the Labor side changing its goalposts again.
Oh, no.
Which, of course, makes it very difficult to govern the country. Look, I think Craig's been very generous here to his leader again.
But the one thing, I mean, Labor's never said that they are expecting a deficit. They've said that it's a possibility, and it would be irresponsible not to consider a deficit.
I'm not
that's
sure
fair.
about that, Kieran. I think that they've left a very, very strong inference that we're going to deficit, and this is all part of the politics. So they're playing up the Australian people. They're setting us up for deficit, and when it happens, it'll be tough, it'll be hard, it'll be something that we're going to take.
Okay. Well, let's look at the one final issue before we go today. It is a busy day, a lot around. Penny Wong is over in Poland. Craig, do you think that people's support for action on climate change remains as strong as it ever was in your electorate in the Central Coast of New South Wales, for example? I mean, just for one snapshot of a group of people, given the financial crisis, or are people more worried about their hip pocket?
Look, I think the environment and climate change is something that's very strongly on people's agenda in my electorate, which is a coastal electorate that's clearly affected by climate change, or anywhere in the country. And what we've done is taking a consistent position from before the election, where we said this was a very important issue that we wanted to see some movement, some change, and to Australia to take a leadership position on. And we've been consistent with that position, and we're going to be putting forward our policy next week.
Michael, the coalition really hurt at the last election because it didn't get with the program with climate change in many ways. Do you think that things have shifted at all, or is it still very much important that the coalition side of politics stays where it is now in supporting the ratification of Kyoto and other things?
Oh, look, Kieran, I mean, the environment is very important to people. Certainly in my electorate, I acknowledge that, and the coalition's has got to have a good policy on this. It's interesting
what is that policy, Michael?
It's interesting that during the campaign. Hang on, Craig, I'll tell you. During the campaign, the Prime Minister said that his target was going to be 60% by 2050. Now we hear that the Minister's going over to Poland, and we're not sure whether it's going to be a 5% or a 20% target that she's got on the table. How is this going to affect the 2050 target? And I just think that this sort of position by the Labor government really makes it very difficult for the people in the country to really understand what's going on, and we're just very disappointed with what Labor's doing.
Okay, well, Liberal MP. Well, sorry, Craig, we're almost out of time. In 20 seconds or less.
I was just going to say that we've got so many different positions on climate change from the Liberal Party. It's a little bit difficult for Michael to actually come up with a coherent position for them, and I feel very sorry for him. But anyway, at least the government has had a strong position, consistent position right from the start on this issue.
You keep on moving the goalposts, Craig.
We've been consistent all the way through.
All right, gentlemen, as always, appreciate your time. Craig Thompson, Michael Johnson, thank you very much.
Thanks, Kieran.
And that's all for this edition of AM Agenda. Don't forget to join David Spears, 4:15 Eastern Daylight Saving Time for PM Agenda. For now, I'm Kieran Gilbert. Thanks for your company.